Fifth Hour Radio Show.
When did you first realize that you had this ability that you have?
Probably about 5 or 6.
What kind of experience did you have at that age?
Well, my mother was a medium, and so that was like everyday life for us, just growing up in it and around it. And they were undertakers as well, so it was death was all around in the house. But for myself, I would see these people, especially in my room at night. Shadows, faces, pretty frightening things. Some not so frightening. Some came in times of comfort.
When you have an experience like that, this is Randy, by the way. Nice to talk to you, Jackie.
Hey, Randy.
When you have an experience like that and you see a vision, especially at an age like that, when you were young, what kind of interaction was going on there? Were you talking to these things, these spirits or visions, or what?
Yeah, well, but at first, of course, you're frightened and you hide under the covers, and there's no such thing as a nightlight. There was, but not inside that house. You were taught to, confront your fears, no matter how old you were. So, and that would show a sign of weakness and needing some light. You would hide under the covers.
Well, yeah, I would too. I would too.
Pull them up real high, and when you realize that as you peek down over it, these apparitions would still be there, and most of it was through a telepathy type of speaking. You would hear their voice. They knew what you were thinking because you would have this conversation going back and forth, and all of it was on my end. Can you please go away? Please, 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 please. And, they just kept continuing to come and to move closer. And some would speak just as we are speaking as well.
How old were these entities? Were they?
Well, there was one that always will stick out in my mind, and he was a young boy, probably a little older than myself. I wasn't in school yet, and I knew there was something wrong with him, and that was I talk about that in the book, The Devil I Know. And it was, my mother would go to comfort this woman who was her client, and this little boy was in braces. His legs were in braces, and he was in a high chair. And I remember being afraid of it because I knew we were around the same age, and maybe he was older, and he was just a big old kid in a high chair. And then I knew he had passed because I had seen him in our family home, and nobody had spoken about it, and he was fine. Like, he was able to walk, and he showed me that he was okay. And he actually ran up and down the steps, and I think it was more to show me that he was free of those heavy metal braces on his legs. He was obviously very ill.
Mm-hmm.
So I would see these little children, and I would see these grown folks, and I would see older people that I would go down to the train tracks down in Louisiana, and where back in the day, we would say hobos, and I pause at that word, and I also pause at homeless as referring to people, but that's what it was, and
Mm-hmm.
they lived on the rougher side of life, but had probably the biggest hearts and taught me the most. And it was a gentleman who was very old and hung out in that group, and he came to me often when he passed and I was a child.
Now, as you got older, were you able to control your abilities, or is it something that just happens?
It just happened. And when you try to push it out, force it away, other things happen to you because it's trying to get through. It'll be a chain of events, even becoming ill, where maybe something is trying to stop you from doing something or going someplace that you shouldn't.
So are you saying you at one point you tried to stop these visions?
Oh, hell yeah.
I imagine. Yeah.
Yeah,
I imagine.
you try all the time because you're trying to be into your own spirit, your own body, and there's something interfering. It's like you don't want to come out and play today, type of thing. So you shut your door and you turn your own TV and you watch your own cartoons, and you're not allowed to do that. Somebody's always hammering at the door.
Have you ever had spurts where there weren't any visions?
I don't think so.
I know that you see stuff all the time, but was there ever a time that you were at peace for a little bit?
Well, you sort of used to it. It's like it's like being born with blonde hair or black hair or red hair, and you don't need to look in the mirror to know what color it is. You just know.
You just learn how to live with it.
Well, it's one of those things. I mean, it's you pass people every day in the street, and it's almost as though somebody passes you a note and lets you know what's going on, and it's a chain reaction. Stay to yourself, I guess.
At what point in your life did you decide to use this ability to help other people?
Oh, geez, I had to be. Well, I worked for my mother. I was her medium for some of her high-end clientele that would come in that wanted to make a connection with the other side via seance.
Mm-hmm.
I was really small. Then it went on, and
how did your name get out there? I mean, I know you've worked with various law enforcement agencies. I've
Right.
read that on your website and stuff like that. So, how did they get in contact with you and knowing your abilities, and how have you helped the law enforcement agency itself find people, find clues to old cold case files, stuff like that?
Well, I don't reach out to them. I never have, and it's pretty much word of mouth in that circle. It's like anything else. If you know where to go when you want something, you'll find it.
How many times have you worked with the law enforcement agency?
Well, I work with them up until today.
Oh.
The captain of NYPD has retired, and we're still working private cases. So,
well, let's go ahead and talk about the book you was talking about, The Devil I Know, and
Right.
we was talking about, I was speaking of the A&E special you had.
right.
How did that come into play? How did you get involved with the Ronald DeFeo murders?
Oh, that was a wild story.
We want to hear it.
Well, it's the opening of the book. It talks about a case in Long Island TV show. It was called Medium PI, and it was the captain and myself. And it was going to be the greatest show on earth. And they just had the highest of hopes for it. Spent a lot of money on it. And we were, unfortunately, TV is just a show, but this was real. And this was somebody's life. And this was a child. And a child was killed. And it starts off having to find what had happened to this young teenager who hasn't even had a chance to live, and for the grieving parents. So we're on a boat, and it's just bitter cold, and we have to dive. I knew there was nothing else in this canal. I knew there was nothing else in there. And the captain wanted to go back in, and he just felt that he needed to do his job, and he's pretty incredible. So he suits up to go in, and so many things start happening on this boat. Now, mind you, I have never been to Long Island at that point. Initially, the family had come to me, and I'm in Brooklyn, New York. So the family came to me, and then I said we should put this on the show to help them because of prices. If you go with a private detective, you're looking probably $25,000 to $50,000 to get somebody that you're looking for. You're going to need manpower. You're going to need this, that, and the other thing. So I began hearing things and seeing visions, and it took a turn for the worse. People became very ill on the boat. Very, very ill. Cameramen, producers. People were hearing things. It was very frightening. And there was a pole there, and I wasn't sure what it was. And I thought initially I thought at first, somebody did not want us on that canal and was shooting to let us know that we weren't wanted. And I was hearing these gunshots, and I was taking my earplugs off, and I was supposed to be ready to go in if anything happened to the captain and get him out of this very, very deep, cold, dark waters. And I was distracted, and he was losing air. And when I think about it now, anything could have had happened to him. And everybody was sick. People came down with fevers. We did also. We were on a boat, and we were very sick. I had pneumonia. He was sick. He came down with the same thing at the same time.
Now, is that a normal occurrence?
No, it isn't. And the boat just died. One of the boats just died that we were on. Never happened before. The captain of the boat, I'd never seen this man before. TV crew, they rent these things out. Mm-hmm. In their budgets and what have you. And, there's a boat for just cameramen, and there may be a boat for specialty divers. And everything went wrong. Their boat stalled out. They couldn't get up onto where we were. Our boat just died completely and was heading right towards the back of this house. And I was like, I never, and this wasn't in the book, I never, I don't know if this is the proper language, drove a boat before.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of things, but I was like, what do I do? And the captain's like, just try to keep steering it away from the house. Just keep, and
nothing like learning at the last minute.
Yeah, oh, hell's yeah. And the water was kicking up, and that was very odd. Like I said, it was like, it started raining like pellets of ice. It was just freezing. And here we are just going right into the back of the Amityville house. That's what it was. I had no goddamn idea. And we sort of, there was like a lot of different things that were happening around the family we were working with as well. Like, of course, what wouldn't happen? Your child is gone, and it was just like everything was breaking down. Everything, every unit was breaking down.
So this dark force just blanketed this place, didn't it?
Completely. People didn't talk to each other. I walked away from the show, and
So,
I have a very good relationship with A&E, and the show.
Now, when you
was
say people didn't talk to each other, are you talking about it just changed everyone's demeanor to where
completely. I mean, I didn't realize it at the moment because I became infuriated, and I was mad. Like, why is a show like this on TV? I said, I don't want it. You can keep your contract. I mean, I'm known for doing certain things and meaning what I do. And TV isn't important to me. It was the family. And I wasn't going to make a mockery of anything. I never did and I never will. And I just walked away right there. I got off the boat, changed my clothes, and I was done. I was completely done. I have and had the best relationship with the highest decorated individual in NYPD.
Mm.
We're talking about somebody who is head of hostage negotiation, search and rescue, the captain of cold cases. I mean, I can go on and on about this person, and I was done.
So now
I was completely done. The show didn't matter to me. Nothing mattered to me. I just wanted to be isolated.
Going through something like that, which I don't want to dwell on such a negative experience, but going through something like that, do you feel like you have residual, I don't know how to, do you feel like some of that's left? I mean, can you think back to when that happened and still kind of feel that a little bit, or have you been able to muscle through that?
You'll never forget it. I have dealt with many serial killers, people that the public doesn't even think about because they just come into their house, shut their door, half of them don't even lock it, and go about their business. And I can't tell you that when I think back at something like this, I can't believe how the devil knows how to put you on a road and make sure you stay there and make sure you face everything it has for you to face. There is nothing worse than standing in front of your own mirror in life. My mother, it pushed me to face my own mother's death, and I avoided it for years and years out of fear, out of what will come after me, my family, and it put me in a place where I accepted the show, and I see it now clearer than ever. I accepted the show. We were closer to his house. There were so many other people we had lined up to help, and I picked that particular one. I had to help that child. There was others. There was another place, actually, we were going to go to earlier, but there was a shootout in the place that was attached to it that happened to be a post office. I believe it was in Pennsylvania. And nothing else mattered but this one particular child that died in this canal. And everything was centered around this issue. And when I talk about facing my own mother's death, to find out Ronnie was at the same hotel where my mother had died, and like you leave traces of yourself in different places in life. It's like walls. They hold the essence of everything that has ever happened in that place.
Do you think that this entity that comes out of the Amityville region, the house, is possibly the most powerful entity you've ever faced? Do you say that is the devil itself?
I faced a lot of things. My mother died in an exorcism, and in that book, it was the first time it ever came out public. So, is it? I don't know, because I also dealt with the New York City Zodiac killer, and that this is new and forthcoming, and it's called The Haunting of the Gemini.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I was going to talk about that.
And I have to say, just when you think you beat the devil, there's no such thing as beating him. It's like saying there is complete world peace, and somewhere far south, something is being blown.
Now, do you think, I'm going to use the word devil. Do you think the devil brings you into these things since you have this ability? Do you think he has more of a power over you because you have such an ability?
I don't think the devil brings me into it. I think the devil has a beef with me.
Maybe he's angry. Yeah, I guess that's a way to look at it too. Yeah.
I think, I have something that he wants. And, so maybe, that's...
That's real scary is what it is.
Yeah. Now that you said that. Yeah.
It's very scary.
Yeah, that calls for a drink of water.
Or maybe something stronger.
Yeah, I don't drink. I like to stay in full mind.
Well, maybe I'll have one.
It's funny, I passed out the best moonshine that my dad ever made, but I don't drink.
Go ahead.
Well, this is going to be completely off subject here, but what kind of hobbies do you have?
Oh, that's great. I love collecting 18th century art. I love the art. I enjoy the zoo. I'm a huge animal lover. Music.
What kind of music? What kind of music do you like?
Everything from classical to old blues. I mean, I'm originally from Louisiana, so if you cut me, music notes and blood is going to come out.
You got a lot of jazz on you.
Else still, I don't know. A little bit of venom, it seems like.
I got to go back to this subject just for a second because it's been on my mind so much. Mm-hmm. And it's about the Amityville murders. It's about the family that moved in after the DeFeos.
Right.
Were they honest, or was it a fake?
Oh, the Lutzes?
Yeah, George. I think it was George Lutz and his wife. Is it Kathy?
Yeah.
Kathy, I think maybe.
Yeah, Kathy and George.
Was that real? So many people has.
I know, and I state it as it is in my book, where I'm very I'm not biased and saying, I was saying what was said. This is what was said. This is what was said. And I wasn't saying, I wasn't cheering anyone on, or I wasn't putting anyone down, but I have never spoken to them. Mm-hmm. Never.
Now I think George passed on.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Kathy passed on, and George had passed on, and then I believe his son or sons were involved in doing documentaries or something. There was a beef between the family. I mean, anybody. This is not just knowledge I have. You can Google it. But I would. It was like everybody just came out of the woodwork on this, and they wanted to gobble something up. I don't think it's the house you want to gobble up.
Right.
But I can tell you from recordings, I have over 10,000 hours of Ronnie DeFeo and myself, personal and private letters. I can tell you that he knew George before Ronnie became the Amityville Horror, or the house, or the friggin' canal, or whatever else he became in Long Island.
Let's talk about this house now. Looking at it, I mean, the representation in the movies and on book covers and things, is that an accurate representation of that home?
Well, of course, like anything else, times change. There's storms. There's, the elements of life that a house that is on the water will take a beating, right?
Right.
So they change it, and I'm sure they changed the face of the house, and actually they did change it. And, no matter how you try to make something pretty, what's that old saying? You can't put lipstick on a pig.
Yes, you can.
You understand? So
Yeah.
the house, no matter how pretty you make it, no matter how nice you paint it, you can change those windows, and you can change the shutters, and you can throw, a Lexus in a driveway, and you can do this and you can do that. But like I said before, there's a residue that lives on things.
Well, let me ask you something.
That'll never change.
I wonder, because I don't know, and I don't know if you know either, but are there people living in that house now?
Oh, yeah.
What do you think? And this is just...
I think you're crazy for doing
Yeah.
it. Like, you don't even have to finish the sentence. I think you're crazy. I wouldn't spend a night in that damn house. I had Ronnie in mind long enough. You couldn't give me enough money. Like I said, I'd much rather my life down at those train tracks with those nice old hobos drinking my daddy's moonshine than sitting in that old house.
Why do you think these spirits congregate to like a material building like that?
Well, I think, and I know that what happens in life is that we're all meant to do something. We're all meant to be someone. We're all meant to put a mark on the world. And Ronnie had his cut out for him long before the Amityville house. I mean, if it wasn't there, it sure to hell would have been somewhere else. It wasn't the house that did it to him. It was what happened to him, what he did, the things he worshipped, the blood sacrifices he was involved with, the pact with the devil that he confessed with, I can go on and on. I mean, it's it came along with them, and then it festered in that house, and then the crimes, and then what hangs around crimes. A lot of people keep sticking to, it's the crime, but there's something very dark that hangs around the crime area, and I've been around hundreds of them in my career, and I am not saying the victim brings the demon, the act of the crime brings the demon. It opens up a portal.
Like a magnet.
Exactly. Because it's pleased with such hideous work.
Jackie, I got to ask you also, and I don't want to keep you on the line too long because I know you're busy, and I know you've had interviews after interviews this last few days. Have you ever had any negative press? People that just come at you and just don't believe you at all, and how do you handle that kind of situation when people do that and say these things to you?
Oh, well, yeah, sure. I mean, I believe everyone should have an opinion, and I've had Yeah, I have negative press. I think someone called me a Nazi once also.
Why a Nazi? That's kind of way out there.
I have not a
That's
clue.
reaching for, I don't know what to
Yeah,
say.
it's crazy. It's crazy. But I don't dwell on stuff like that. Everybody has a right to believe, to have a belief, and an opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But the smarter person searches out before they point the finger.
Mm-hmm. Also, I got to ask one more thing, and because I had it wrote down in my notes. Do all psychic mediums, all psychic people, is it pretty much the power the same with each person, or is it different for each person? Like some people might use a trigger item to help in their readings, and some people might not.
Yeah.
Is there different levels, I guess, of
Well, I'm sure. I mean, I don't personally hang out with anybody, that's in that field, but I'm sure that there are. I mean, there are pretty awesome people in every field. It's like an artist, you got Van Gogh, you got Monet, and
don't forget about Renoir.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Could you tell our listeners a little bit about what you got going on right now? Maybe your books. Maybe you got some upcoming appearances or something.
Yeah, you can Google the name Jackie Barrett. You can thehousethatKbuilt.com, The Devil I Know, and also forthcoming is The Haunting of the Gemini. That has to be on my editor's desk, like in the morning.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I can see why you're pressed for time. We didn't mean to keep you on here too long. We were just so excited to talk to you. That's it.
It was a pleasure.
Well, Jackie, thank you very much for joining us on the program. Everybody, check out Jackie's website. Go, I guess you can get your book. Can you get your book on Amazon?
You can get it on Amazon, your local bookstores.
Yeah, go out there.
Worldwide.
Yeah, go out there and make sure if you ever see the rerun of A&E's The Final Testament with the Ronald DeFeo murders, it's really interesting. I loved it. And Jackie, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you very much.
Right, you have a nice night.
You too.
The 25th Hour Radio Show.